So the way the flex cutter bar works on the DynaFlex here is this ladder kind of spine of a structure is what's supporting the whole of the weight. And the gauge wheels out there, they're spring loaded. There's a torsion spring that's in there that's helping support the back weight of that. Just that helps it react so the feeder house isn't really supporting the weight, it's just kind of guiding along. Now, the actual cutter bar is supported with little hydraulic cylinders that are located underneath the shielding there. And that's where you adjust how much down pressure that's on the ground. So if you've got good, hard, solid ground and you want that cutter bar to really just kind of flex and follow the ground, what you're going to do is you're going to take the pressure out of those cutter bar cylinders, those suspension cylinders, and that way the weight of the cutter bar is rested on the skid shoes, and because it's good, solid ground, it's just going to continue to kind of float and walk across the ground there. Now, if we start to run into some softer ground to where we need to support more of the weight of the cutter bar because the ground can't, then we're going to start increasing the pressure inside those cutter bar cylinders, those support cylinders, to where now that stiff frame, that frame that's on the back, is supporting the weight of the cutter bar. And now we're putting less of a footprint, less down pressure on the ground, and now that fully flexible cutter bar is able to follow along the ground. Now, on each of those cutter bar support arms, the arms, the steel tubes that run from the cutter bar back to that spine, there's a sensor on each one of those. And so depending on how wide your header is will depend on how many sensors there are. But those sensors feed back into the machine to where it's got a left and a right hand input. And it's going to adjust the height of the header up and down, and then also try to maintain the voltage even between the left and right hand side to be able to keep that header as level and flat to the ground as possible. And that way you're able to ride up over the top of terraces and it's able to follow very smoothly. And again, we're able to decrease our loss being able to completely contour along the ground to be able to really cut against the ground and really leave a great cut pattern. Now, the other thing to think about is when you set your cut height. So each of those cutter bars has a certain amount of, I think it's a total of 16 inches of total travel. But anyway, you want to put it in the middle of that travel. So when I'm setting my cutter height, my cut bar height, to where when I drop it in, like what I'm going to do right here, when it drops in, I want it to drop into the exact middle of where that sweep of those cutter bar arms are going. That way I know I've got the maximum amount of travel up and the maximum amount of travel down, to where it just, again, it's allowing that header to be able to contour the ground. So when I'm setting that cut height, I go into the calibration screen and I watch the voltages on the left and right hand side, and I watch and I drop the header to smash it into the ground. And that way I'm recording the minimum voltage, and then I raise it up to where the cutter bar no longer touches the ground. That way I get my maximum voltage. When I use the knob here to set my cut height, I try to put it right in the middle of that range, right in that sweet spot. And that way when we're going over the contours of the ground and we're going through washouts, over terraces, we've got a maximum amount of travel and a maximum amount of time for the header to be able to follow the ground and contour over the top of it. And then again, when I have nice solid ground, I run as little cutter bar pressure as possible, again, to get that maximum amount of flex and the maximum amount of travel of that cutter bar. And then you turn on your automatic header height control, set the cut height, and you just go harvest. It just follows, and you just don't really have to worry about the header height. And it, again, you can see in behind the head, it just leaves a nice flat surface to where there isn't any stubble. You're cutting down below that last beam, and you're getting it all into the combine. I think we found a sweet spot here.